Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, guys, I am so excited to say, but we're going to be reviewing the new Makeup Maniacs Thang Palette while we talk about the subject of, are vampires real? So welcome to the very first episode of the season of Makeup and Mysteries. You guys want to see what this palette's all about? Are vampires still walking among us? Then definitely keep on watching. Okay, so originally I was going to do this video where I was actually going to do like a very vampiric look. I was going to have like some fake blood and like some vampire teeth and do like a vampire inspired look. However, your girl, you guys can tell, has a tooth infection. So, I mean, I'm assuming it's a tooth infection. I did talk to a doctor. I'm now officially on antibiotics to help with the pain and the swelling because I do have a little bit of pain. Really not much, but just a little bit. But I am on antibiotics and I'm such a little freaking baby that when I was talking to the doctor, I was like, listen, I can't do like large pills, okay? Because I'm a little baby, okay? I can't do large pills. So they actually gave me a liquid amoxicillin. So that's what I'm taking. And I was so scared to take it because I remember as a kid it tasted like bubble gum, but now it tastes like mixed berry. And I'm like, okay, yay! I'm so excited that it tastes really good. But I'm officially on medication, so here's hoping. I'm not gonna worry about getting like my wisdom teeth out until way after my wedding, because if this is bad, I can only imagine my face will look like after wisdom teeth. So that's why I'm not doing a vampiric look to go with my vampire story today, but instead we're gonna play with the Makeup Maniacs Thang Palette. Now this actually launched early September. I want to say around like September 4th and 5th, and I got it within like a week or so of ordering it. Came super quick. However, I wanted to wait until October to review this palette because it definitely is a Halloween palette. And speaking of Halloween, welcome to day 8 of Vlog-O-Ween. I'm so glad you guys are enjoying this series with me just as much as I enjoyed doing it. So what is the Thang Palette? Superbly pigmented shades in mattes, shimmers, and foils. 12 eyeshadows and 2 stunning highlighter shades suitable for any skin tone. Create sunset looks or spooky season looks, perfect to use any time of the year because we believe Halloween should be celebrated every day. Now this palette does retail for $28.99, but it did sell out. However, they are allowing a pre-sale to happen. So right now you can still purchase the palette, but it's going to be available for pre-sale. So it's going to ship when it ships. I mean, it says right now that you're not guaranteed to get it before Halloween of 2021, unfortunately, but you're still going to get it. It's just a matter of when you're going to get it because it did sell out really fast. So congratulations, Makeup Maniacs. That's freaking amazing to sell out a Halloween palette. But I will definitely link this brand down below so you guys can get it yourself. Check it out. You guys know how much I love Halloween and I love Halloween palettes. So before I dive into an eye look and tell you guys the history of vampires, I'm going to go ahead and swatch these shades for you. I think this palette is absolutely gorgeous. Definitely complements Halloween. Like I can see Halloween when I look at this, and I like how they put 2 highlighters here. So let me swatch these for you guys, and then we're just going to go ahead and dive straight on in. All right, so the very first shade we have is Cinnamon, Pumpkin, Witch, and Creepy. All right, then we have Candy Corn, Cauldron, Eerie, and Bonfire. Next we have Goblin, Spooky, Sunrise, and Last Leaf. So here are all the swatches right here. And for the highlighter, we do have the shade Sugar, which I will swatch right here. So that's the shade Sugar. Very, very, very gorgeous highlight. And then we have the shade Pie Crust right next to that. So that's Sugar and Pie Crust right there. Okay, so that is the swatches on this palette. I really do love how the highlighters look. They're really beautiful. I'm going to try something out of my comfort zone today. I'm actually going to play around with this black shade. I've never really played around with black shades on my eyes because I find it to be very, very intimidating. So we're going to make a look today using this black shade. I'm actually kind of inspired to create a look based upon the colors right here. So I'm going to use some black, some oranges, and some yellows to create this vibe that you see right here. It's not really a vampiric look, but I'm still going to tell you guys the story because it's so much fun. And I really hope you guys like the intro. That's That's gonna be my intro for now on when it comes to makeup and mysteries. I just thoroughly enjoy it. It took me a minute to edit, so I really hope you guys like it, and I really hope this palette turns out great. This is the first Halloween palette of the season that I'm playing with. I am so freaking excited. So let me go ahead and zoom you guys in, and we're just gonna get this party started. Alrighty guys, so before we dive straight on in, I do want to remind you guys that today officially starts the sale of the entire Starry Night collection from Blinged Brushes. This entire brush set is going to be 30% off. You guys can use code Allie30, which will take 30% off this entire set. This entire set is going to cost you less than $100. You can purchase the eye set, the face set, or the brush set. Every single one is going to be under $100 for you guys, and you could also just purchase the brushes individually. But the sale's going on from today until Monday. Like I said, you guys can use code Allie30 to save you guys 30% off your purchase. And I'm just so excited to talk about that because it's really not that often you see the entire Starry Night collection for like $96. Like, that's just freaking insane. So I'm going to be really upfront with you guys. I am not going to talk. I actually voiced over this entire story because it's just so much easier for me, because I struggled to do my eye look and talk at the same time, especially with like my little like jaw area here. So I'm just going to do my makeup. I will obviously talk in between, let you guys know what I think about the shadows and whatnot, but we're just going to sit back, relax, and we're going to talk about the legend of the vampire. Vampire, a legendary creature often fanged who preys upon humans gently consumed by blood. But where did the first vampire originate? When did the vampire go from fact to simply a myth? And are vampires still walking amongst us? The first vampire story is tough to pinpoint, as most stories date back to the 1800s. But the seeds of modern vampires have appeared in mythology since the beginning of recorded history. The story of Sekhmet, the Egyptian feline warrior goddess associated with both plague and healing, is considered by some to be one of the oldest vampire tales. Legends say that the sun god Ra sent his daughter Sekhmet down to punish humankind for their disobedience. But after Sekhmet couldn't stop drinking blood upon her slaughter, Ra quelled her planet-draining thirst by dyeing a bunch of beer red, which put her to sleep for over 3 days. Lilith is a 4,000-year-old figure in Jewish folklore who in some stories was Adam's first wife before Eve. She had a monstrous rap in ancient Babylonia. According to scholars, the Babylonians believed that Lilith was hungry for victims because they had once been human and would slip through the windows into people's houses looking for victims to take the places of husbands and wives who themselves never had had. But of course, the legend of the vampire didn't truly exist until the Middle Ages in Eastern Europe. Research shows that in the Middle Ages, Europe was often plagued by infectious diseases, some of which have shown characteristics often associated with vampiric characteristics. A rare blood disorder called porphyria, which symptoms included sensitivity to light, resulting in blistering skins or burns when exposed to the sun, hallucinations, and receding gum lines, which gave the appearance of elongated teeth. Some cases were so severe that the sufferers have lost their ears and noses, giving them a monstrous appearance. Other diseases such as tuberculosis and rabies also spread the fear of vampires. One famous case that led to the widespread fear of vampires in the 1800s was the case of Mercy Lane Brown, who at the age of 19 years old died of tuberculosis, otherwise known then as consumption. In 1892, Brown was exhumed alongside her mother and sister. Alarmed that his son appeared ill with the same mysterious illness that has taken his wife and daughters, Mercy's father, George Brown, reluctantly agreed with other concerns that a malevolent force might be preying upon his farm. He consented to an examination of the remains. While Mercy's mother and sister remains were just bones, Mercy's body was laid on its side and was far less decomposed with hair and nail growth, with blood found within her mouth. A local physician said that this was normal given that Mercy had passed only 8 weeks prior and her body lay in an above-ground tomb during the middle of winter. Nonetheless, the town folks wouldn't hear it and demanded that her body be removed and that her heart be cut out and burned. The ashes were then mixed into a potion as an elixir for the sick, a common New England anti-vampire practices. Her brother drank the potion, and he died a few months later. As news spread of Mercy Brown, vampirism was already running rampant through all Europe and New England. Digging up the bodies of suspected vampires was a practice in many cultures. To stop someone from coming back from the dead, many would stake the corpses through the heart and remove the teeth. Others would place a brick between the corpse teeth as an exorcism technique. Many would just burn the body and sprinkle garlic over the corpse as a sure way of making sure the person never came back from the dead. As fears spread and desecrated grave rituals became the common practice, Pope Benedict XIV proclaimed that vampires were a fallacious fiction of the human fascination. Over the following century, a growing number of creative works would give a fresh, new makeover to vampires. The first book published about vampires was by an author named John Polidor, who wrote The Vampire, followed by the 1872 serial about a female vampire from the author Joseph Sheridan. But the most prominent and well-known vampire book, Dracula, by Bram Stoker, changed the way humans once again viewed vampires. Dracula is believed to be inspired by the real Vlad III Dracula, who is also known as Vlad the Impaler. He was a 15th century Romanian warrior prince who loved his barbaric torture methods on the battlefield. He would often stake his victims with the wooden stake. Legend has it that Dracula enjoyed dining amongst his dying victims and dipped his bread in their blood. It was also said that the Countess Elizabeth Bathroyd was believed to have murdered dozens of young women during the 16th and 17th century in order to bathe in or possibly drink their blood to preserve her own vitality. Dracula changed the way we viewed vampires. Stoker's gave folks the idea that vampires had supernatural abilities. Could vampires transform into bats at will? Could they have mind control over the weak? Was their reflection not shown in the mirror? They couldn't walk in sunlight, and they hated garlic. All of which had been myths that surrounded the creature of the night. In the 20th centuries, vampires began to turn from being depicted as predominated animalistic creatures to instead displaying a broader range of human characteristics. Books such as Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice depicted a vampire with self-loathing and human emotions, turned the vampire from a scary monster but to a longing, sexy, romantic figure. Shows such as True Blood and Vampire Diaries depicted vampires as heroic and human-like, while books like Twilight caused people to long to be with an actual vampire. Each new movie or book changed the way humans looked at vampires and changed their supernatural abilities with each century that passed. Although vampires by the 20th century became creatures of fantasy, urban myths about vampires persist to this day. There are still some villages in Bulgaria that still impale corpses. There are also people who call themselves vampires and consume small amounts of blood to stay healthy. These communities of self-identified vampires can be found all over the internet and in most cities in town. To avoid rekindling vampire superstitions, most modern vampires keep to themselves and typically conduct their feeding on the willing and done in private. However, there are still countless stories that plague the internet of true real-life vampires that still walk among us today. One famous story takes place in 1930 on the corner of St. Anne and Royal Street in New Orleans. There is a deep red building with a wraparound balcony. It is said that it was home to John and Wayne Carter, two seemingly normal brothers. One day, a young girl escaped their apartment and ran around screaming for help while blood was pouring down from her wrist. When the police went to investigate the apartment, they found 4 people tied to chairs with their wrists slit as well as dozens of dead bodies drained of their blood. It took 8 officers to hold down and detain the brothers, who were average height and size, might I add. The brothers were executed for their crimes and buried in a vaulted tomb. Years later, the vault was opened to receive the body of another family member, and the workers were astonished to find no trace of the brothers in the vault. They had simply vanished. Another story dates back to France in the 1700s, where a mysterious man who charmed the courts of Europe, Comte de Saint-Germain, was a strange, extraordinary, and enigmatic character. He was a master of the piano and the violin and could converse in 6 different languages, and his skills as a conversationalist were unraveled. That is, a skill that is nowadays a lost art. He also composed music, including arias and solo works of the violin. His wealth was unfathomable. He carried gems around in his clothing, and no one knew how he came into such wealth. No one knew anything about his family and where he came from or who he was. He did, according to some accounts, claim to be the son of Francis II Rosci, Prince of Transylvania. One of his greatest passions was of alchemy, and he believed to have extraordinary talent for maintaining his youth. Perhaps it was his vast knowledge of cosmetics and herbs that kept him young. The philosopher Voltaire called him the man who knows everything and who never dies. No one really knew his true age. He looked about 40 in all of his portraits and continued to appear for over half a century. Although he was charming, engaging, and graced the dining tables of many dukes and kings, no one has ever seen him eat anything. He'd only sip his wine exquisitely and ramble on about everything from history to chemistry. There is much speculation about the Count's lineage and immense wealth, which resulted in the development of many myths and legends about his background. He's considered by some to have mastered immortality, as many have claimed to have seen him since his death in 1784. Fast forward to New Orleans, Louisiana, and there appears a man by the name of Jacques Saint-Germain in the early 20th century. He fits every description of the Comte above. Around 40 years of age with heavy money bags, the most fascinating of diner guests, and still a complete mystery. He would throw these lavish parties and invite the elite, and everyone would sit enraptured by his conversation and food. But curiously enough, this Jacques would never eat a morsel, only sip his wine. One night, several months after moving to New Orleans, he had a lady stay a bit late. Out on his balcony at the corner of Ursuline and Royal Streets, this Saint-Germain grabbed her and tried to bite her neck. She escaped by falling from the balcony, then reported the incident to the police. When the police came to investigate, Jacques Saint-Germain had vanished. They researched his apartment and found tablecloths with large splotches of blood on them. They searched the kitchen, where they found no signs of food or evidence that food had ever even been there. All they found were bottles of wine, and after pouring themselves a glass, drinking it, then spitting it out, they discovered that it was not only wine in these bottles, but it was wine mixed with human blood. Okay, so I'm not exactly sure how I'm feeling about this look. Usually lashes will pull something together. So I'm going to go back into this palette. I'm going to go back into that black shade, and we're going to go ahead and line the entire underneath. I freaking love this style brush. It's like perfect for lining the upper lash as well as the lower lash and really getting like a precision going. So I'm just going to start to just stamp this right here, and then we're going to blend that out with like an orange shade. But I don't know how this is really going to turn out. I have to throw on a pair, like I'm going to do like a dramatic lash to like pull this look together. Hopefully you guys are liking my stories so far. It's unclear whether Count Saint-Germain and Jacques are the same person, but believers speculate that they are. To this day, the mysterious figure of Count Saint-Germain has his own cult following. Although he allegedly died in the year 1784, no one saw his death, and some claim to have seen him many years afterwards. Nevertheless, he disappeared from court life. I would too, if I knew that the French Revolution was coming. I don't really like the underneath, but we're going to go ahead and throw on a pair of lashes, finish the rest of the face. We're going to come back and do the lips together and wrap up the history of the vampire. Another story is during the colonization of New Orleans, France was having a hard time convincing women to make the voyage. This was mostly due to the fact that men originally sent their thieves, murderers, and culprits of every type and caste, not to mention Louisiana's snake, alligators, mosquitoes, and humidity. Eventually, some women were sent. Some sources say they were nuns, while others say they were prostitutes, but nevertheless, a few of them made it. Many of them snuck off the ship in Mobile, Alabama, where they reported there and were told what type of riffraff they would be tricked into marrying if they stayed on board. Historically, these women were referred to as casquette girls in reference to the small chests in which they carried their clothing and other belongings. However, the legend goes that these girls had the most interesting luggage, shaped little coffins. So, to the dismay of the men of New Orleans, all that arrived in New Orleans 300 of these coffin-like suitcases. Some stories say they were empty, some say they contained the undead. These suitcases were reportedly stored in the attic of a convent in French Quarter, where they still sit behind the windows that are nailed shut because they have a strange habit of just opening by themselves. Years later, in 1978, 2 amateur reporters demanded that these convent priests let them in to see the coffins. The priests, of course, denied their entrance, so one night, these 2 men climbed over a wall with their recording equipment and set up their workstation. The next morning, the reporters' equipment were found strewn about on the streets, and there, on the convent's footsteps, were found the almost decapitated bodies of these 2 men. 80% of their blood was gone. To this day, this unsolved crime baffles investigators. However, research indicates that these legends are completely unsupported by historical evidence. It is unclear how and when the myth of the casket girls began, but the story continues to haunt tourists and believers to this day. In New Orleans, there is an actual New Orleans Vampire Association that is committed to serving the New Orleans community. One of their main missions is to feed the homeless, and for over 10 years they have fed the homeless on every major holiday. According to them, vampires are real, but not in the way the movies depicted, but rather normal people who feel just a bit different. Not immortals with superpowers, but humans who enjoy feeding on human blood or using sexual energy to fulfill their needs. Regardless of your belief, vampires became mainstream after Dracula was published. Since then, Count Dracula's legendary persona has been the topic of many films, books, and television shows. Given the fascination people have with all things horror, vampires, real or imagined, are likely to continue to inhabit the earth for years to come. Alright guys, and this is the final look. So originally I was going to put this Chaotic Cosmetics V Never Called on top of this black lip, but it's really peachy, so I feel like it didn't really mix well with it. So before I dive into this palette, I just really hope you guys enjoyed my first makeup and mysteries of the season, and I really hope you guys enjoyed me telling you guys all about the history of vampires. I find them so fascinating, probably because I'm watching Vampire Diaries right now, and like I'm legit almost done with season 7, about to start season 8, and it just really sparked my interest of how vampires came to be, how the legend of the vampire came to be, and to see how it evolved throughout the centuries is super cool. And know that there's still like real vampires walking amongst us today, whether they're like the ones that just thoroughly enjoy drinking blood, or they're the real supernatural Saint Germain walking around. That is something that's just so cool to talk about, to discuss, and I just find it so fascinating. It's one of the many reasons why I want to go to New Orleans, to try checking out all the amazing places there. But that's definitely like a something I want to see, is like if vampires are still walking among us. I think the next one we'll talk about is werewolves or lichens, and how that legend came to be, because everything does spin from the truth. Like wherever legends come from, there's always some truth behind it. So are vampires real? So with that said, I'm gonna quickly dive into this palette. First off, I would definitely say this is the first time I tried anything from Makeup Maniacs. While I don't really care for the name Boo Thing, I feel like they could have called it something else. I thoroughly did enjoy this palette. I think the packaging is absolutely beautiful. I tried to recreate this look as best as possible, or like I was inspired by this, and I really enjoyed playing with it. Now I will say that I was really intimidated by the shade Eerie, because it is a black shade and I never play with blacks, and typically I only see like Michaela does makeup, usually does like a black base before putting on a shadow on top of that, like from like P. Louise or something. I unfortunately did not have anything like that, so the fact that it gave off a lot of pigment without having to put anything down underneath it says a lot. I did struggle with it only because, one, I find the shadow to be incredibly intimidating because I don't play with blacks, and two, it's just kind of like my lack of skills. Like it's my lack of skills, lack of confidence that kind of made me struggle with this shade, but I did really enjoy it nonetheless. Then I love the shade Bonfire and Eerie. Absolute two beautiful shades. Now the shimmers are not creamy and buttery in the way that I love it, but they still went on absolutely beautiful, and they have so much pigment, so I would definitely give credit where credit's due. I really did enjoy the shade Pumpkin and Candy Corn. It's what I'm wearing underneath my eye right here, and I kind of played with the shade Witch a little bit on this eye, but I ended up just not going with it. So overall, I would definitely say this is a great start to starting off the Halloween season. It definitely fits the Halloween aesthetics. I thoroughly did enjoy playing this palette. This palette makes me want to check out other things from this brand, and this was just so much fun to play with. It definitely screams Halloween, and unfortunately this palette is currently only available for pre-sale, so it does retail for $28.99. So if you guys do purchase it right now, you're probably not going to get it until after Halloween, because it is a small indie brand, but you guys know how much I love to support indie brands, and I think this palette's definitely worth it, especially if you're into Halloween just as much as I am. So congratulations Makeup Maniac for selling out this palette. Don't forget to check out Bling Brushes, because their entire Starry Night collection is 30% off right now. Use code Allie30 for 30% off. And yeah, sorry I couldn't deliver you guys like a vampiric look like I wanted to do, but you know, my tooth had other things in mind. It wanted to participate in the Halloween season. So what can I say? Things happen. But overall, I really did hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed the stories, the eye look, the palette, just everything, the new little intro for Makeup and Mysteries. I had so much fun creating that. But yeah, guys, that is it for today's video, guys. If you guys like this video, please be sure you guys give this video a cheeky thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you guys have not already, because I do post 3 to 4 mostly. No. Oops, oh shit. I post every single day in the month of Vlog-O-Ween. Make sure you guys check out my other channel. It's Offer to Life. You guys get to see my cool, wonderful adventures, my amazing husband, Corey, and a huge thank you goes to these wonderful Patreon members that you guys see right here. Thank you guys so much for everything. And to my subscribers and viewers, thank you guys so much for being here. Whether you guys like this video, you guys thumbs down this video, you guys subscribed, you guys did not subscribe. Either way, thank you guys so much for being here. I love and appreciate each and every single one of you. So with that said, guys, I love you, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye. So I'm gonna dive quickly into the Halloween palette. He was in the 15th century Romanian. He was a 15th century Romanian vampires. So what? Hey guys, Bathroy. It was also said that 28. It's 28 still walking amongst us. The story of Sekhmet, the Egyptian feline warrior goddess associated with both plague and history. The story of Sekhmet, the Egyptian female. That's why I'm not doing a makeup inspired. That's what Porphyria, which symptoms include vampire, a legendary creature often fanged those who prey. Vampire, a legendary creature. Vampire. As news spread of Mercy Brown vampirism, as news spread